You and I probably have a lot in common. I'm a mom. I work hard to provide for my family. I have goals and dreams, things I'm good at and things I wish I did better. A few years ago, I was on a treadmill. I think most of us find ourselves there at one time or another. We find ourselves repeating the same old habits and patterns, not really going anywhere. And maybe the treadmill we're on isn't even ours. Maybe it's made up of the expectations of other people. At a critical time in my life, I had a couple of conversations that made me hit the big red stop button on the treadmill. Then I did something revolutionary. I stepped off. I looked around at my life and asked myself, is this what I really want? Some people would call that a midlife crisis, but I didn't radically change my clothing style or buy a sports car. Instead, I started making small changes to my habits and routines. What I noticed was that one small change led to another, and over time, the difference was revolutionary. I think most people define midlife as a certain age, but maybe that's just the time when we take what was given to us in the beginning of our lives and decide to mold it into what we want for us, and not for anyone else. You can make small changes that are revolutionary too, like maybe listening to a new podcast. It's just one small thing, but it also might just be revolutionary. Hello, beautiful humans. It is lovely to be here with you this evening. I've missed you guys. It's been a while since we've done anything live together. And I have been working on commenting on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So I just dropped the first commentary video basically since October, episode 5. And I have the next 2 episodes ready to go. And then I would kind of like to do the season 1 finale all together if I can find a way to do it. Obviously can't show it on screen while I'm watching it, but I'm thinking about the possibility of just having the audio playing, and maybe we can synchronize the watch party together or something like that, kind of like we tried to do with the Dateline interview. Although that was not a perfect format, I ended up having to play it on my TV behind me. But this time, I think I would probably have one screen in front of me with the audio playing and then the live stream on the other side so we could live stream it together. I think that would be kind of fun to sort of hate watch the season 1 finale together. And then I can finally get started on season 2. So Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I think I've told you, is not my favorite show to watch. There's a lot of drama that goes on. And from what I understand, I've been talking to some of my friends and they've said that season 2 is even worse than season 1 as far as the drama is concerned. So welcome to all my new channel subscribers. I've had a lot of subscribers over the last 48 hours since I posted my video about the Cox family, specifically a little more about Barry Cox and his legal troubles, a little more about Steve and Stacy, who are the parents of Melanie, who is the niece of Lori Vallow-Daybell. So I've got some new subscribers. So if you're new to the channel, welcome to you. This is a lovely space for beautiful humans to connect with each other. And we talk about all kinds of different topics around the intersection of Mormonism, true crime, and healing. So it's kind of an odd combination, if I'm being honest. I never really expected things to go in this direction. But I love it. I love this little community that we have here. And I love talking about healthier relationships and healthier family systems and healthier religions. And I also love doing the research that brings you the facts and the details on the cases that are important to you. So one of the reasons I'm commenting on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is because there's this weirdness around, like, how Mormon are these girls really? And is this how real Mormons are? And I really wanted to shed some light on that because there is kind of a difference between people who are really devout, faithful Mormons and what gets portrayed on that show. It's kind of an interesting dynamic there. And a lot of people don't understand exactly what Mormons believe, and it can get kind of convoluted. And I do have a series on my channel called Mormonism 101, where I explain some of the Mormon doctrine and Mormon beliefs. And so if you have questions about the Mormon church, I answer them there in those Mormonism 101 episodes. And those came about as I was watching the first few episodes of that Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and people started asking me questions in the live chat. What do Mormons believe about this? And why do they do that? And so that's where that series started. And the next thing that I have to do in that series is to talk about the Mormon temple, which feels very daunting to me because my own experience in the temple was pretty traumatic and difficult. And so going back to revisit that is, it just feels like a lot, it's emotional. And kind of like the Barry episode, man, I've been working on that for a couple of months. And I had so much research and so many notes and all those pictures compiled and everything for a really long time. But putting it all together and sitting down to record the episode all at once was a lot. It was a lot to get into. So I appreciate your patience. I am never going to be the channel that comes at you with a breaking news story and have, all of my stuff together. I'm very much more of a person who likes to read and absorb and listen to a lot of other voices in the space before I make my comments or before I make a video about stuff. So even though I'm never going to be first to the table with whatever it is that I'm commenting on, I will guarantee you this, that my responses are always going to be thoughtful. They are always going to be well researched. I love researching. And I want to bring the receipts, and that's why it took so long to do that episode, because I wanted it to be well documented. And I felt like I found the documents that I wanted to find. There were still a lot of things missing, and I still left with a lot of questions. And I also uncovered some things that are not related to the case that I was like, look, I just don't want to know anymore. I'm going to stop digging now. So yeah, MB, thanks for saying this. Don't take Secret Lives of Mormon Wives as gospel. I hate to be kind to that church, but heaven help me, that's not how I was raised. And I'm very much removed. And it was not how I was raised either. My parents were very strict about everything from what we were allowed to do on Sundays and what we were not allowed to do on Sundays, the TV shows we were allowed to watch, the movies we were and were not allowed to watch. It was very, very tightly controlled in my house. And I never would have gotten away with wearing clothing like that. In fact, when I was talking to my parents about the research that I was doing, I didn't tell them specifically that I was doing an episode about Barry because that might have sent them. But I was just in general referencing, some of the times that I hung out with the Cox family as a younger person. And my mom commented about how angry she was that we went to Janice and Barry's and they were in Hawaii and they left the kids with no parents at home. And she said, I came back looking like a lady of the night, let's say. That's not the word she used. But yeah, I mean, in my family, I was never allowed to dress immodestly. My shoulders could never be showing. I could never have a low cut dress or a short skirt. And so when I see a lot of the things that they wear that obviously don't accommodate the temple garments, it's shocking, because in my house, that never would have been a thing. That was never modeled to me from my parents or other people in the church. But when I was at the Cox's house, that is what was modeled, because it just was anything goes. So yeah, and Eleanor Nelson, you're right. Secret Lives implies it's going to be the immoral side of life. And they definitely, like, the whole reason why they became so famous and popular, I feel like, is because of that swinging scandal that went on that was so shocking to everybody. Not only is that not really mainstream society, it's definitely not mainstream Mormon. So for a lot of people, it was like, really difficult to swallow that these women are even related to Mormonism at all. So anyway, I'm glad to be reconnecting with you. I know that we have a Lori hearing coming up next week where they're going to start going through the jury selection for her upcoming trial with Brandon Boudreaux, Justice for Brandon. And I honestly, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to start another trial. I'm really, really glad that I'm going to be doing it right here from home. That's definitely the right place for me to be, is to be covering it from here. But it just feels a little daunting. I know it's going to be a lot of long days and nights like it was before. But again, at least I'm going to be here in my own house. It's going to be summertime. We're wrapping up the school year for my kids. And there's a possibility that my youngest son, who's living with me here, is going to be getting a grown-up job and possibly could be even moving out pretty soon. And that feels really weird to me. It's particularly bizarre as a mom of 6 kids to have such an empty house. So there's all of that that's going on as well. I really feel like the last 3 months have just been a complete whirlwind. I cannot believe we're almost at the end of May already. Between the entire month of April being taken up with the trial and then getting home and immediately having a wedding and then immediately going to visit my daughter and my new grandson. It's been a whirlwind, and it's been exhausting on a lot of levels. And there was a lot of fallout after the trial was over, just of things that I missed here at home and trying to play catch up and trying to reconnect with all the people here in this, in this sphere. It's been really tough. So anyway, I'm glad that I went. I think that it was the right thing to do, but at the same time, I do have regrets about going. So I'm glad that I'm not going back until the verdict and the sentencing. So I will be back in Arizona for that. And hopefully that will be only a couple of days. I know that we can't really predict how long the jury is going to take, but I suspect most likely what will happen is that as soon as the jury goes out to deliberate, I probably will drive. I don't know. I really don't want to drive. It's my least favorite drive. It's like a 13-hour drive. It is definitely not my favorite drive. It's just, it's not very pretty. Like once you get out of the Texas Hill Country and you get into West Texas proper, it's pretty flat and pretty bare until you get to Phoenix. And 13 hours is a long drive. And it's really closer to 14, especially once you do stops and things like that. So it's not my favorite drive. It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, do I want to bite the bullet and pay several $100s for a one-way plane ticket? Or do I want to bite the bullet and drive? So that's always like the fight that I have with myself. But the kindest thing that I could do for myself is go ahead and spend the money and fly, because that would be so much more peaceful, right? MB's asking, how does that feel from the amazing to the absolute tragedy? It's been a huge roller coaster, and I have this habit of not really allowing myself to experience looking forward to things, because I've had so much disappointment in my life that sometimes it's hard for me to look forward to things. So like whenever I'm going to go visit my sister, for example, I don't really look forward to it until I'm actually on the plane. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to see my sister. That's exciting. And it's a way of, I don't know, it's one of those weird like defense mechanisms, a way of protecting myself from disappointment. And so, yeah, it's, so anyway, I started to say that just to say that I knew in my mind that I had this wedding coming up, and I knew the specific things that I had to do to get ready for it, but I did not really allow myself to experience it until I got back home. The trial was over, and people started coming into town, and I started doing wedding errands. And then I was like, oh my gosh, my daughter's getting married. Like, it was, I didn't allow myself to really savor it enough until it was actually happening. And then once it was, of course, it was beautiful. And, you know, it was, even though there are some problematic family relationships, I feel like everything went pretty smoothly. And I really was able to enjoy the day. And she had a beautiful day. And I really love my bonus son. And I'm really, really just happy for them. They had a beautiful day, and they went on a beautiful honeymoon. And then getting on the plane to go to see my daughter and the new baby and her family. Jill Gazer says, fly first class, lol. It's a lot easier said than done. It's literally twice as much, I think, to do that. Yeah, thank you for that. It is definitely faster. It's definitely more peaceful. I would get there more rested. Saying goodnight to my daughter. Sorry, guys. Apologies. You know, it's funny. I asked, the question is if I've talked to Brandon. I met him in person for the first time on the first day of Lori's trial. I had never spoken to him in person. I had, sent him a couple of Facebook messages over the years, but I'm sure that with all the family drama, I think there was a lot of like, who's safe and who's not. And so a lot of us were wary to communicate with people we hadn't really been in touch with before. But I got to sit right next to him. I got to meet him. I got to meet his beautiful new wife. We had a really wonderful conversation. It was kind of ironic when, there was all of that hullabaloo about Brandon being on the witness list and not being allowed to be in the courtroom. And when the judge finally ruled, like, okay, the prosecutor's going to take Brandon back and talk to him about what he might possibly be able to contribute as a witness. And it was at that time that I got to speak with Brandon's wife. Just briefly, we kind of whispered back and forth for a few minutes while Brandon was out of the courtroom. And it was lovely to meet her. It was lovely to connect with them. I have long been grateful to Brandon for everything he's done for Kay and Larry. I don't know how he feels about being quote unquote last, but we're just all grateful that he's alive. We're grateful that he's going to testify in this trial. And so I'm really grateful for that. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks everybody for the kindness in the chat. I appreciate you. Yeah. He seems like such a good man and such a kind soul. And I felt that like ever since the time that I saw the wedding pictures of him and Melanie. Melanie sent out an ask, who wants a wedding invitation. And of course I signed up for that. I got their invitation. I wasn't able to go to the wedding, but, I celebrated them from afar and appreciated them. And I loved seeing, she was doing all kinds of things to, improve herself. She was running half marathons and marathons, and I saw the kids being born, and I saw them as a family together and all of their family pictures and everything. It just seemed like they had this idyllic life. But I really didn't talk to Melanie much until after Lori's first trial. I spoke to her, as a child, and when Stacy died and she was there for the funeral, we were able to connect a little bit, but I didn't really know her as an adult except through social media, which is kind of like not knowing anybody at all. And so reconnecting with her a little bit after Lori's trial, very cautiously. And at that point, I had no idea how involved she was. I hadn't looked at a lot of the other evidence. Whatever was presented in Lori's trial was all that I knew. After Chad's trial, and I heard the recording of Melanie talking to Lori and Chad after Alex had died, I think that was pretty much it for me. where I realized how involved she really was. And I was very sad and disappointed about that. Um, Melanie and I talked on the phone a couple of times. We exchanged some messages back and forth, and that was really about it. But I did not reach back out to her after Chad's trial. So I'm sad about that. I'm sad about, I would love to be closer to her and be a good influence on her, but I think that she probably is very involved with Janice and Summer and the Cox family, and that's not something that I want to be involved with. So anyway, I didn't really expect to share all of that stuff, but I think Melanie was very, very heavily influenced by Lori. I think that she needed a mother figure in her life. I think Lori provided some of that for her. And it's unfortunate that she latched on to those beliefs so tightly. I think she really was desperate for acceptance and love and belonging. And she found that in Lori, but it meant the price of that is going along with what Lori says and does, and who Lori wants you to be, and the role she wants you to play in her drama. So it's unfortunate and it's difficult. But I do think that Melanie has some things to answer for. So anyway, I really just, I wanted to do this live just to reconnect with this community. I was hoping to, to just kind of joke around a little bit about Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but it kind of, at this point where we're still awaiting the last trial, there's a lot we can't really put away yet, and I get that. So I appreciate your questions and comments about that. I really do. I agree with you, Cat Ride, that Melanie should have done more to protect her own kids. I don't know how much she really knew about what was going on with JJ and Tylee. She was still in the middle of her divorce and also dealing with her own custody battle at that time. But I was really disturbed to learn how on board she was with Lori's teachings. And of course, like moving to Rexburg right there next to Alex and everything, there's probably a lot that she was aware of, and there's a lot she could have done to prevent people being harmed. And I'm grateful that Brandon and her two kids, who were labeled dark, are still with us, because I think that it could have been tragic. Anyway, it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre having this be something that my family is involved in. And I think somebody said this earlier, that there still are quite a lot of people who are being pretty mean about me having my own channel and talking about it. I think Aaron, it was, yeah. And saying anything regarding the Cox family, which I find to be ridiculous. You can tell your experience. The thing is, I started out this whole thing just talking about my own experiences, because I wanted people to know that this is the real Lori. She was always this way. And I did it because I wanted people to be able to recognize manipulative behaviors and manipulative people and learn how to not be taken in by that. And I still stand by that. I don't regret speaking up and speaking out. And I think I have said this so many times before that no, I'm not at the center of this. I'm not somebody who has lost people that I knew closely and dearly loved. They were family members. But again, I've said before, I didn't ever meet JJ, and I only knew Tylee as a young child. So in that vein, a lot of people have said, what are you doing here? It's none of your business. But, imagine if people can just try to put themselves in somebody else's position for a minute. Imagine if someone that you grew up with and loved and cared about, who was a family member, our families were close. And when Janice and Barry lived in San Antonio, we were over there all the time. 10, 12, 15 times a year, we were at their house. My kids were swimming in their pool all the time. And it's the hard part for me is trying to delineate between the people I thought they were and the people they actually are. And it's a personal safety issue. It's a personal integrity issue. And I really stand by the idea that nobody gets to tell you how to grieve when tragedy touches your life. And it doesn't matter if the tragedy is right in your face or if it's at arm's length. It affects all of us in different ways. And for me, it was like one more thing on the pile of the fact that I grew up with people who I thought were one thing, and it turned out that they were a completely different thing. The idea that I allowed my children to be around these people who are capable of doing this, and the fact that I trusted them, and the fact that I counted them as family, that I cared about them, that I loved them, that I prayed for them, that I felt so connected to them. And it's a huge part of my memories growing up as a child and a young adult. And, as a young married person. And nobody gets to tell you how to grieve or how to process. So I know that it's a hard thing for people to understand. And even, a couple of my kids have when I first started talking about it, were like, they didn't really understand why I was talking about it. The more I started to talk about the fact that I don't want other people to have to suffer through things like this. I want people to be aware of what manipulation and control looks like, so that when they see it, instead of just going, oh, that's just the crazy family members that we have, so that when they see it, they can spot it and call it out and say, okay, this is a familiar story. I see this pattern before it starts to repeat itself. So, Eleanor Nelson, I agree with this, that my parents allowed me to be around the Cox family. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I think and I've said this before, my parents are good people. They're well-meaning, if ill-equipped, emotionally ill-equipped. They definitely didn't mean any harm, but at the same time, there was a lot of emotional neglect. There was a lot of abusive dynamics in my house growing up. And so while my parents are no Janice and Barry, and I don't blame them. That's the thing. I understand where they came from. I understand what skills they were born with, and what skills they developed, and what skills they did not. And I've used this analogy before. It's very much like a family of tradespeople, blue collar workers, hoping to pass millions of dollars down to their children when they die. That's probably not going to happen. And it's the same with emotional maturity. It's the same with emotional wealth. So you can't give to your kids a legacy that you yourself haven't yet developed. And I think that my parents were very focused on a lot of their own issues. And they did have a lot of issues and difficulties personally and in their marriage. And so as a result, that, we kids did not get the emotional education that we needed, and we did not get the guidance that we needed about how to interact with each other in healthy ways. So the point of all of that is to say that all of us grow up with some kind of deficiency emotionally. And so therefore we all need some kind of therapeutic healing as a result. And so that's why I always advocate for people to get professional help, because we all have unmet emotional needs. And whenever we have those wounds, if we don't heal them, we end up hurting people unconsciously. One of my favorite Carl Jung quotes is that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You think that it's fate, but what it actually is your unhealed emotional wounds. And so that's why I'm such an advocate for people to get that healing and to get that guidance. So I think the thing that resonates with me the most is that, I've said this a million times. We all know someone who is similar to Lori, who has similar patterns of manipulation, who lies to get people on their side, who withholds the whole truth because they know it makes them look bad. We all know people who have unhealthy behaviors like that. And it's really important to develop the skill to spot that and to be able to call it out in healthy ways. And so that's what I care about more than anything else. And actually, to bring it all the way back around full circle, that's one of the things that I appreciate about talking about the secret lives of Mormon wives, because there are some manipulative behaviors going on in there. There is some definite insecurity in those relationships, and there is definitely some manipulation and control that happens not only between the spouses, but between the girls as friends. And I see these patterns emerging in the way that they talk to each other and relate to each other. And there are some moments where they do things in healthy ways. I even noticed it in the last episode, Jesse sitting down with Whitney and saying, listen, if there's a situation where you're in a friend group and you've got a problem with every single one of these 6 friends, you're the common denominator. You need to look at yourself and say, why is it that I don't get along with any of these people? Why do I have a problem with every single one of them? Maybe it's me. And it's like it's like Zulema. I look at Zulema, she's been married 6 times. What's the common denominator there? There's got to be some kind of relational pattern that she keeps repeating. Even when you end one marriage, it's so important to take a step back and look at your own contribution. It's one of my favorite things when I'm observing a family custody case in family court, and there's a particularly combative spouse, and the attorney asks that spouse, what do you think your contribution was to the demise of this relationship? If they're a healthy person, they're able to take a step back and say, I think that this is what I did wrong and this is what I could have done better. If they're not a healthy person, they're going to shift blame onto the other party. One of the most telling cases that I saw, this woman was being questioned. The attorney asked her that question. What do you think you contributed to the demise of this relationship? And she responded, I got married way too young and I trusted my spouse way too much. Well, that's not a self-reflection. That's just you shifting the blame to someone else. So I think it's healthy for us to, when we get out of a relationship, to ask ourselves that question, what did I contribute? When I started to look at that in the demise of my own marriage, I had to acknowledge I had some unhealed emotional wounds that caused me to react in certain ways. And I had to learn to heal those wounds so that I didn't bring them into my next relationship. And even with all the work that I've done and all of the healing and the therapy that I've been through, those wounds still get poked from time to time. And I still tell myself stories in my head that aren't true. I tell myself that it's an abandonment when actually it's not. It's hard to unlearn those patterns. The difference is that now that I've been through all of that therapy work, that I recognize that it's not a true story. And so instead of reacting out of that, I can just acknowledge that it's not a true story and have a healthier conversation about it. So, anyway, I love this quote by Maya Angelou. You do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. I love that. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Simo, good to see you. Are you new? Lori, who? And I saw earlier you were asking, I think Zulema Pastenis was who I was talking about. That was the lady that was one of the 7 gatherers. She was in the little inner circle of Chad and Lori, and she ended up marrying Alex Cox just a couple weeks before he passed away. Yeah, and I agree with this, THX 1138. It's really challenging to be in the later chapter of your life and these things are surfacing. I don't have the skills to cope with the purge. And I completely understand that. It's hard work to do. And I have a lot of respect for people who dig into it later in life because it is hard to break those patterns. I would say brains tell us the truth. Sometimes our emotions tell us lies. Feelings are not fact, and they're just feelings. And sometimes they're an appropriate reaction to a situation, and sometimes they're not. So I just think it's really important for us to examine the possibility that the story we tell ourselves is not necessarily a true story. That's where I've done a lot of the most, the most important parts of my healing is where I've been able to have this story start playing in my head. Oh, he doesn't actually love me and respect me because he did XYZ thing. Well, that wasn't a true story. It was just my feelings reacting to it. So anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for being here to help me unpack Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. The next 2 episodes, so tonight was episode 5. I have already watched episodes 6 and 7, and I have them recorded. They just have to be edited, and I'm hoping to release one tomorrow and one the next day, and then maybe episode 8 that we can do together. That's the season finale of season 1, and then I can get started on season 2. It's a lot to think about, to be honest, but I think it would be fun. I think it'd be fun to watch that together. And then from what I've heard is that season 2 is going to be even worse drama. So I don't know. I don't really want to do that myself. So I don't know. You guys tell me it would be even interesting for me to have one screen right here with just the audio playing and for us to sort of watch it together. So my idea for the Dateline episode was that we'll come together about 10 to 15 minutes in, we'll do a little recap, and then about 10 to 15 minutes in, I will say, okay, push your play button. We'll watch it together and we can kind of react together. I don't know if there's even any interest in that, but I think it would be something fun possibly to do. Because I just don't want to do it alone. Selfishly, that's it for me. Yeah, it's just tough. It's on Hulu and on Disney Plus. And so the way that I did it when I recorded this last episode is that I had the show playing in a separate window. And then as you saw, I was able to show a couple of clips. We'll see if they strike me. I don't know if they're going to copyright strike me or not. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that they don't, because I think the clips I used were short enough. And because I just played the screen being paused. And it's not, Eleanor, it's not that it's torture for me to watch. It's just not my favorite thing. I don't enjoy girl drama. That's just not, I don't enjoy drama between friends and couples and all of that. But I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about how to do things in healthier ways. I do appreciate being able to say, the way they handled this was healthy. The way they handled this, that's maybe not so healthy. Maybe let's do a different thing. So anyway, I'm going to release the next couple of episodes and we'll just see how it goes. And then I'll make a decision about the season finale later on. So I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you have a beautiful Wednesday night. And just look forward to reconnecting with you guys. I know that on the 29th is going to be the beginning of jury selection for Lori's final trial. I'm so excited for it to be over. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys then. So thanks for being here. Please take care of yourselves. I was talking with someone earlier today about self-care. And they were saying to me, you know, that's never really resonated with me, because when I think of self-care, I think of just sitting on the sofa and reading a book or just having downtime. And this person said to me, self-care to me is having a cushion in my bank account. It's having multiple streams of income coming in, so I'm not worried about falling behind on my bills. And that resonated with me, because self-care sometimes just means setting yourself up for success. So I hope that whatever self-care means to you, I hope you define it for yourself, and I hope you do it for yourself, because you deserve it. You deserve to be treated with kindness and respect, and you deserve to have a peaceful and abundant life. And so I hope you'll do whatever it is that you need to do to get that done, because you're worth it. Thanks for being here, beautiful humans. I will see you again very soon. Take care. Hello, beautiful human. Thank you so much for watching today. Would you do me one quick favor and take a second to subscribe to the channel? It's the best way that you can support the channel for free. In addition, if you're interested in even more exclusive content, you can join the community at the link below. Thanks so much for being here.